Hey everyone, this is Erica Studdard, and this is my project number 3. So first here, this is my letter to Miss Lund and Mr. Harris, basically explaining what I have within this document here, this file I guess you'd say, and what each thing actually is. And I also included that there is a $500 filing fee for the certificate of authorization that I'm going to get into. So, and then I signed up Belinda Murphy since that was the attorney that we were supposed to be working for. So, I started off with the bylaws. Maybe I should have started with the articles of incorporation, but so I'll go ahead and kind of explain what I did here. So, I put that that is going to be located at 123 Main Street, Memphis, Tennessee 38103. And that the board of directors have the power and authority to establish and maintain branch or subordinate offices at any other locations within the same city or within the same state, or as the case may be. So I'll go ahead and say this, I found a lot of different statutes, and I don't want to reference all of them within this video because it would probably be like way too long. I've got like 12 different ones. So just as a disclaimer, the majority of everything that I have written within this, I wrote it based off of what the statutes were saying. There was one, Article 5, contracts, loans, checks, and deposits. I didn't find anything on that necessarily, or maybe it didn't look hard enough, I'm not sure, but I thought maybe I should take it out. But then whenever I read it, it seemed kind of like something that would be good to actually have in there in case something were to come up. I just think that it's better to be safe than sorry. And these articles obviously can be amended if Miss Lund or Mr. Harris decide that they do not like it, which I know it's our job to produce a document that's perfect the first go around, but I myself would personally want these provisions within it. But so I'll go back up here to that. So I did Article 1, Article 2. So this basically goes over the stockholders and the annual meeting. So there wasn't like anything, I didn't see anything within the information that said like what day we were supposed to have the annual meeting. So I did it to be on January 1st, 2019 at 9 a.m. The special meetings I found within a statute that not less than 10% of all the outstanding shares of the corporations are entitled to vote at the meeting. The place of meeting, so it can be anywhere in Memphis, and it can be designated by the board of directors. The notice of the meeting, it cannot be delivered more than 70 days before the date of the meeting, either personally or by mail or yada yada, which this was in a statute. Like I said, a lot of this was in a statute. So quorum, I found that in a statute as well. Proxies, it said within the statute that no proxy shall be valid after 11 months from the date of its execution unless otherwise provided. Voting of shares, the Tennessee Code annotated section 48-17-202 goes over this, and it says that each outstanding share entitled to vote shall be entitled to one vote on each matter submitted to vote at a meeting of stockholders. So onto the board of directors. So there's only 2 directors of the corporation, Miss Lund and Mr. Harris. There's a regular meeting, special meetings. They can be held at the principal office. Notice. So notice has to be given at least 2 days. Notice of the date, time, and place of the meeting. And the notice doesn't have to describe the purpose of the special meeting. It just has to give notice to it. Vacancies. Quorum is pretty much the same, I felt like, in the statutes that I read for the most part. the wording's a little bit different but for the majority of it, it basically kind of says, majority of the number of directors fixed by these bylaws shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business at any meeting of the board of directors. But if less than such majority is present at a meeting, the chair of the meeting or holders of a majority of the shares of such voting group who are present may adjourn the meeting to another place, date, or time, and no notice of such place, date, or time may be given except as required. And I found a statute that backs that up. I think I actually retyped it based on that statute. I retyped a good bit of all of this based on the statutes. But vacancies, a statute said that if there's a vacancy that occurs, then the board of directors, then it can be filled by a shareholder, the board of directors, or if the directors that are remaining in office constitute fewer than a quorum of the board, they can fill the vacancy by the affirmative vote of a majority of all the directors remaining. So compensation, by resolution of the board of directors, the directors may be paid their expenses. See, I didn't really find, I think I found something on this, but it didn't really say much to it. So I just kind of left it as it was. Article 4, officers. So the officers of the corporation shall be a president, one or more vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. The election, the officers of the corporation to be elected shall be elected annually at the first meeting of the board of directors held after each annual meeting. Any officer or agent elected or appointed by the board of directors may be removed by the board of directors whenever or without cause. If there's a vacancy in any office because of death, resignation, removal, disqualification, or otherwise, it may be filled by the board of directors for the unexpired portion of the term. E just kind of goes over some of the powers and duties. Article 5, like I said, I just kind of left that as it was. Article 6, certificates for shares. So, certificates for shares. Shares don't necessarily have to be represented by certificates, and the rights and obligations of shareholders are identical whether or not their shares are represented by certificates. And then it just kind of like goes into like what needs to be on paper, kind of showing that the shareholders do have the shares. So for the fiscal year, I said that it started on the first day of October and it ended at midnight on the 30th day of September of the following year, because that's just kind of what's like the usual fiscal year. So dividends, the board of directors may from time to time declare and the corporation may pay dividends on its outstanding share in the manner and on the terms and conditions provided by law and its articles of incorporation. So Article 9 goes into like the seal. I basically left that alone. I left the Article 10 waiver of notice alone as well. And Article 11 about the amendments, I left that alone as well too. So down here, after I typed this up, which there's not much to it, I realized that Miss Johnson had said there was actually an Articles of Incorporation on Tennessee Secretary of State website, but I didn't want to go back and do it because here we are. So mine's pretty direct and to the point. So I based this off of the Tennessee statute, and essentially it says that it has to have the name and it has to state that it's a for-profit corporation. So here we go. Cutting Edge Computer Repair Incorporated is a Tennessee for-profit corporation that adopts these articles of incorporation. So boom, already has that knocked out. It says that it has to state how many shares are allowed to be issued, and there's 10,000 shares that are allowed to be issued at no par value. It must include the registered agent, which is Bradley Stephen Harris, and where the office is located, which As you can see, it's right there. Article 3, it said that it must list what the two the incorporators, whomever the incorporators were, must list their names and their addresses. So here I listed Bradley Harris's and Cynthia Lund's addresses and their names. And then for Article 4, it must have the principal address, which is 123 Main Street, Memphis, Tennessee 38103. Thanks, that's all.